Haaland scores the only goal as Manchester City beat Brentford 1-0. Jules, City were the better side.
Yeah.
You got a bit lucky with that Christopher Ayer slip.
Yeah,
did
a
they?
little bit.
It's a little bit like when Steven Gerrard fell over. Could that determine the title?
I don't know if it will determine the title, but yeah, they got a bit lucky, although they still had more chances. Foden could have scored at the end. I don't know why he decided to try to go around the keeper, and that didn't work. But yeah, I think you need a bit of luck. There was no KDB because I think his hamstring is still troubling him a little bit. There were some decisions that Pep made that I don't know, I was not too keen on, but in the end, all they care about right now and for the remaining 13 games of the season is just to take
They could have
points.
scored 3 or 4 even with all those factors that you're chucking in there.
But they didn't. So it was not that great.
Liverpool with 7 starters missing come from behind to beat Luton Town 4-1 and extend their lead at the top. Well, obviously, City and Arsenal have a game in hand.
Yeah.
Jules, how big a deal is this? The fact that they found that reaction?
Again, 22 points they've won this season from losing position is more than anybody else, of course, in England. It's as many points as any other club season at Liverpool, and we still have 12 games to go. It's incredible that they keep doing that. Maybe it's a bit worrying that they concede goals like that early or first in the games, for sure. But as long as they react, even with all those players missing, they had 7 starters. I think all in all, it was 12 players. If you count like Thiago Alcantara and Bayetic and those kind of guys.
Pretending,
but it's still 12 players. It's a lot. And yet you find a way, you put some youngsters on. It's good for the confidence of, I don't know, Elliott and Gakpo and Luis Diaz and those kind of guys.
But that's what I like is the different people stepping up. They're coming from behind. Like sometimes it's been Jota, sometimes last night it was Virgil van Dijk, and then it was Gakpo showing this personality. I mean, I think if you're Klopp, you like that.
The only thing though, they play the League Cup final on Sunday, then they have the FA Cup in midweek, then they have the league again. So you can't catch a breath, which sometimes you'll have a whole week where you can rest, prepare, get your players fit. They don't have that, and I do worry at some point those injuries might just catch up with them.
It's official. Oliver Glasner has taken over as Crystal Palace manager from Roy Hodgson, who stepped down in part for health reasons. Jules, on Monday they drew 1-1 with Everton and are 5 points from safety. Do you like this appointment? I
like Oliver Glasner, to be fair. I liked him when he was at Wolfsburg and qualified them for the Champions League. I liked him with Frankfurt, especially when they won the Europa League. He's an Austrian, I think, quite molded into the RB kind of philosophy, if you want, in terms of intensity. I think that Ralph Rangnick had quite a big influence over him. But I think
people think Ralph Rangnick is a dope in England, so I don't know. You want to say
but
that
still,
quietly.
Good part of Ralph Rangnick. Let's put it that way. So I like it. We've said many times before, we are nothing against Roy Hodgson. I just didn't think he should have got this year currently in the season. I thought last summer, after he kept them up, replacing Patrick Vieira, they should have moved on to someone with a proper philosophy for the midterm, if you want, not Roy Hodgson. I think they've got that with Glasner now. I hope they back him up in the transfer window, because this is a squad that needs reinforcement or needs some investment, letting players go and signing some new ones. But I think he can work really well in the Premier League.
Yeah, and obviously, first of all, you want Roy Hodgson's health. You want him to be happy and healthy for as long as he can be. I think it's an interesting one. I think they went into this season thinking, all right, this is going to be a transition, because let's face it, we have these 3 clubs that have just been promoted, and we're safe no matter what happens this season. So we can kind of have this as like Roy Hodgson's kind of farewell tour.
Yeah.
Our star players, Eze and Michael Olise, we have them for another year. We're not going to go down, because let's face it, Sheffield United are imploding and have no money, because Luton Town, are like the size of a thumbtack, so they'll definitely go down. Everton will get a penalty. Burnley, we expect to be bad. I'm pretty sure all these thoughts went through their head.
Yeah.
There's no way. Now they find themselves, they have a cushion there.
They have 5, but it's not much.
But Luton are like those like nasty rabid dogs with a bone that don't go away.
Yeah.
Everton, you don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, they might get another points penalty. They might get some points back. You're not in a comfort situation. So I think in some ways it made sense for Glasner to come in, even if they're fine. He can adapt to the league, and then they can retrench next year, either with Olise and Eze, or if they sell them, they'll have the funds to reinvest in the squad.
Back to Brentford, Gab. Club owner Matthew Benham has hired an outside advisor to explore the possibility of selling all or part of the club. Reportedly, the valuation is as high as £500 million.
Okay, so when I first read about this, I read about this in a mid-market tabloid newspaper, and they said it was 400 million. Then I read this in the Times, a very well-sourced story. They're saying they want 500 million. Yeah. And I'm thinking, what planet do these people live on? And the reason I say this is that, and I'm not dissing Brentford, it's been fantastic what they've done. They've built a fantastic little stadium and everything. But there's a reason. Matthew Benham's not a dumb guy. He built that stadium to be a, 24,000 seat stadium. You know, you pass it when you come in from Heathrow Airport into central London for a reason. This is Brentford's fan base. They're not going to grow. No. They've got Chelsea and Fulham and QPR on their doorstep. Yeah. They're not going to turn into kind of the West London version of Tottenham or Arsenal, right? So to think that you should be paying 500 million, I think is really absurd. This is not the dimension of the club. So he's being smart. He comes from a background in betting, and finance, so that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
The other factor is Brentford, without Matthew Benham and the people who are there who've decided to operate the club in a certain way based on analytics, thinking for themselves, making unusual choices, and having tremendous success with it, is frankly worthless. Because unless you sell all of Benham's people along with the club, I'm pretty sure you can't do, because I'm fairly certain that they're not slaves and they're not attached to a stadium. You're going to have to start from scratch with a little teeny tiny stadium, with a little teeny tiny fan base, without that institutional know-how that he brings. So maybe he's looking for outside investment. We've been there before. There's been talk about him selling 2-3 years ago. I think he turned down 250 or something at the time that was reported, something like that. Good for him asking for 500.
Yeah.
Most likely scenario is he gets some outside investment. But like, if I had the money, I would come in. I would give him.
What do you think is the value of Brentford then?
It depends, with Benham or without Benham.
Yeah.
What I would do is I would come in and say, hey, Benham, here's 100 million. Give me a slice of the club. I don't know, give me 25%, 30% of the club, 35% of the club, whatever. I try to negotiate up. He'd probably negotiate me down because he's a better negotiator than I am. And I would say, but you have to commit to staying, and you have to get all your nerds who go and do all this stuff. You all have to stay. Thomas Frank, I think, is kind of a weirdo, but at Brentford, he's the Klopp of Brentford. Continue doing that, and then we can talk.
Yeah.
But this is a typical example, I think, of a club where, without he's not the founder of the club, but he's the founder of this version of Brentford.
Yeah.
Without him and his people, is not worth anywhere like that. And I hate this, and I don't say it in a negative way. I say it in a positive way. Sheffield United manager Chris Wilder has been fined £11,500 after confronting the referee following his team's 3-2 defeat against Crystal Palace. He was particularly offended that one of the assistant match officials was eating a sandwich at the time, and he ranted and raved, saying it was disrespectful afterwards on local radio.
Yeah, I mean the fine, £11,000, there's no point. We've said that even before for more expensive fines. This is nothing for Chris Wilder and how much money he's earning. It's nothing for a football club. Just don't do the fine.
I was actually thinking about principle. This. How much money do you think Chris Wilder makes?
No, but
I think this is a week's wages after tax for Chris Wilder. I'm guessing.
Maybe even less than that. But I don't know whoever sets the fine from the Premier League. But what did they think? Okay, we're talking about sandwich here. We can't go too high, can't go too low. How do you end up with £11,500 of a fine? This is ridiculous.
What's the algorithm?
Yeah, exactly. Who decided that? I don't know.
Also,
I'm not sure that the assistant match officials eating sandwiches had any impact on the game whatsoever and on his team performances.
Please realize a little bit, a modicum of respect. If you go after the match, it's not like he was eating a sandwich during the game, right? This is afterwards, right?
Scrolling on social media on his phone.
Sorry?
It's not like if he was eating a sandwich going on social media on his phone while the game was happening.
Yeah. So if you go afterwards to go and shout at the referee, presumably in the referee's dressing room or somewhere in the stadium, what do you expect them to be doing? The man's having a snack. The assistant referee's having a snack. Be grateful that they give you the courtesy of listening to you rant when you know the referee doesn't have a time machine. He can't go back in time. You're just getting things off your chest because you're feisty or whatever. And then to go and blab about it to the media afterwards, which is the real reason he got fined.
Yeah.
No, this is not acceptable. And no, I'm not picking on Chris Wilder and Sheffield United because it's a little club, because if you pay attention, Jose Mourinho, who is a million orders of magnitude bigger and more important than Chris Wilder, we've had to go at him when he's done stupid things like this too. It happens.
Of course we do.